The envelope landed on my desk with a soft thud that somehow felt deafening. Inside was a revised partnership agreement, clinically typed on expensive letterhead, informing me that my monthly distribution from our family's wellness center was being cut in half while my required capital contribution was doubling from $3,200 to $6,400. My sister Vanessa stood in the doorway of my office at Harmony Heights, our grandmother's legacy in the heart of Denver's Highland district, wearing that smile. You know the one. The smile that says she's already won and wants you to know it. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I'd spent 7 years building this place from a struggling yoga studio into a thriving wellness collective. 7 years of sunrise meditation sessions, of holding space for grieving clients, of scrubbing floors when we couldn't afford cleaners. 7 years of believing we were building something together. But when I called our mother that evening, voice shaking as I explained how Vanessa was essentially forcing me out of the business I'd poured my soul into, Mom's response cut deeper than any legal document ever could. Oh honey, that seems reasonable. Property values in Highland have tripled. Vanessa's just trying to align things with current market standards. You understand business, don't you? No. What I understood was betrayal served with a side of gaslighting. What I understood was that my own family had decided my 7 years of sweat equity, of building client relationships, of creating a community space that actually helped people, was worth less than Vanessa's MBA and her ability to speak in corporate buzzwords. But what none of them understood, what they couldn't possibly know yet, was that beneath my desk drawer sat a folder. A folder containing documents our grandmother had given me 3 weeks before she passed, with instructions that seemed paranoid at the time. Keep these safe, Maya. Keep them close. Vanessa has her father's eyes for numbers but her mother's blindness to people. When she shows you who she really is, you'll need these. I hadn't understood what Grandma Rosa meant then. Vanessa and I had always been different, sure. She'd gone to Wharton while I'd gotten my certification in holistic health. She wore Armani while I lived in yoga pants. But sisters were sisters, right? Family was family. Sitting in my tiny office that smelled of lavender and betrayal, staring at that clinical letter demanding I pay double to receive half, I finally understood what Grandma Rosa had seen coming all along. This wasn't about reasonable business practices. This was about power. This was about Vanessa proving once and for all that her way, the corporate way, the money way, was superior to everything I'd built here. She just didn't know that Grandma Rosa had always been 10 steps ahead of everyone. The morning after receiving that envelope, I walked through Harmony Heights like I was seeing it for the first time. Morning sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows Grandma Rosa had insisted on installing back in 2015, when she'd first purchased this converted warehouse space. The hardwood floors, which I'd refinished myself during our first renovation, gleamed under the feet of early morning practitioners flowing through their sun salutations. In Studio A, Keisha was leading a trauma-informed yoga class for veterans. Through the glass walls, I could see Marcus, who'd come to us 2 years ago barely able to sleep through the night, now peacefully resting in child's pose. Studio B held our prenatal class, where Jenny, pregnant with twins, laughed with the other mothers-to-be. The meditation garden I'd designed, with its reclaimed wood benches and native Colorado plants, already hosted 3 people in quiet contemplation. This wasn't just a business. This was a sanctuary. Every choice I'd made here, from the sliding scale payment options to the free community classes on Sunday mornings, had been about accessibility. About creating a space where healing wasn't a luxury reserved for people who could afford $100 sessions. Vanessa had called those choices naive. Said I was leaving money on the table. But the waiting list of 300 people who wanted to join our community suggested otherwise. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa, because apparently dropping a financial bomb via formal letter wasn't enough. Board meeting Friday at 2 p.m. Need your decision by then. Time to grow up, sis. Board meeting. That was rich. The board consisted of exactly 3 people, Vanessa, our mother Patricia, and our uncle Marco, who'd invested $20,000 6 years ago and now acted like he'd built the place himself. 3 people who'd barely set foot in Harmony Heights except for the quarterly meetings where they reviewed profit margins and asked why we offered so many discounts. I'd never been invited to these board meetings, despite being listed as co-founder and operations director. Another thing I'd accepted as normal until that envelope arrived. Another red flag I'd painted green because they were family. The folder Grandma Rosa had given me sat in my locked desk drawer. I hadn't opened it since her funeral, had almost forgotten about it in the chaos of grief and keeping the business running. But her words echoed now with new urgency. I pulled out the old accordion folder, its edges worn soft with time. Inside were multiple manila envelopes, each labeled in Grandma Rosa's precise handwriting. The first one simply said, "Open first, Mija. Before you do anything else." My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a letter, dated 3 weeks before her death, written in the shaky but determined script of someone who knew their time was limited. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then Vanessa has made her move. I've watched her these past years, seen how she looks at Harmony Heights. Not with love, Mija, but with calculation. She sees dollar signs where you see healing. She counts profit where you count lives changed. I recognize this because I've seen it before, in business partners who valued extraction over contribution. I bought this building with money I earned from 60 years of hard work. I structured the ownership very carefully, very specifically, because I knew this day would come. I knew Vanessa would eventually try to push you out, to transform what we built into just another luxury wellness boutique for rich people who treat spirituality like a handbag collection." I had to pause, blinking back tears. Grandma Rosa had known. She'd seen this coming years ago. The letter continued, "The documents in this folder will explain everything, but here's what matters most. You are not powerless. The business structure is not what Vanessa believes it to be. I've made certain of that. However, I need you to trust me on this, trust the process I've set up. Don't confront her yet. Let her show everyone exactly who she is. Let her reveal her true intentions. Justice is patient, Mija, and it's so much sweeter when the guilty condemn themselves." In the second envelope, you'll find the name and number of my attorney, Helena Vargas. She knows everything and has instructions to help you when the time is right. The third envelope contains the actual ownership documents. Keep them safe. Keep them secret. Vanessa thinks she's so clever, but she never bothered to look beyond the surface documents, never questioned what she thought she knew. Your sister has her father's arrogance. She assumes she's always the smartest person in the room. Use that. Be patient. Be strategic. And remember, you didn't just manage this place for 7 years. You loved it. You bled for it. You built something that matters. That's worth more than all her business degrees combined. I love you, Mija. Make me proud. Abuela Rosa. I sat motionless, the letter trembling in my hands. The second envelope contained a business card for Helena Vargas, attorney at law, with a handwritten note, "Call me when Vanessa makes her first major move." I've been expecting this. The third envelope felt heavier, more substantial. Inside were legal documents, corporate filings, and what appeared to be trust paperwork. The words swam before my eyes as I tried to process what I was reading. Harmony Heights wasn't owned by a family partnership. It was owned by a limited liability company called Mountain Sky Holdings. And Mountain Sky Holdings had a sole member, Maya Rodriguez. Me. I read it 3 times. Then 4. The date on the transfer documents was from 8 years ago, right after Grandma Rosa had purchased the property but before we'd opened for business. She'd put everything in my name, structured as a complex trust that apparently made it invisible to anyone not looking for it specifically. But how was that possible? I'd signed partnership agreements. We had quarterly board meetings. Vanessa had always acted like she and Mom owned the majority stake, with me as the junior partner who got to stay because Grandma Rosa had insisted. My phone rang, making me jump. An unknown number, but something made me answer. Maya Rodriguez? A woman's voice, warm but professional. Yes? This is Helena Vargas, your grandmother's attorney. I've been monitoring the situation, and I suspect you've just opened the folder. How did you know? Because Vanessa filed revised partnership documents with the state yesterday. It triggered an alert I set up years ago. Any attempt to modify the business structure would notify me immediately. Helena's voice held a hint of satisfaction. Your grandmother was very thorough. She anticipated this exact scenario. I don't understand. If I own the business, how has Vanessa been acting like she's in charge all this time? Because your grandmother set up two parallel structures. One visible, one hidden. The visible structure, what everyone believes to be true, shows a family partnership with Vanessa holding the largest stake. That's what's filed with the basic business registry, what shows up in simple searches. But the actual ownership, the real legal structure, is buried in trust documents that require knowing exactly where to look. My mind reeled. Why would she do that? To protect you. And to protect Harmony Heights. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Your grandmother knew Vanessa's personality. She knew that if Vanessa believed she was in control, she'd eventually reveal her true intentions. Rosa wanted everyone to see who Vanessa really was before the truth came out. She wanted your family to make their choice freely, without any doubt about where people's loyalties lay. So the board meeting on Friday, Vanessa's demands that I either pay up or get out are completely without legal authority. She has no power to change your payments or force you out. She's been acting as operations manager under your authority, though she doesn't know it. Every board vote, every decision, every financial move, all of it has been happening because you allowed it, not because she had the right to demand it. I thought about 7 years of being talked down to, of having my ideas dismissed, of being treated like the little sister who needed guidance. 7 years of Vanessa explaining business concepts to me like I was a child, of Mom praising Vanessa's leadership while treating my contributions as hobbies. What do I do now? That depends. Your grandmother's instructions were clear. She wanted you to let Vanessa escalate. Let her show everyone exactly what she's willing to do for money and control. Document everything. Record conversations if Colorado law allows it, which it does as a one-party consent state. Gather evidence of her true intentions. Then, when she's gone far enough that there's no walking it back, no claiming it was a misunderstanding, that's when we reveal the truth. How far is far enough? Helena was quiet for a moment. Your grandmother believed Vanessa would eventually try to sell the property to developers. Highland is hot right now. The building alone is worth close to $4 million. As luxury condos, probably 7. Rosa thought Vanessa would push you out, then manufacture a crisis or opportunity to sell, cutting you out of the profits entirely. For $1 million. 7 as condos. I thought about Keisha's veteran students, about Jenny and her prenatal class, about the addiction recovery support group that met here every Wednesday evening. About Marcus, who'd told me last week that this place had saved his life. She'd destroy all of this for money? Your grandmother believed so. And she wanted proof before she let you act. Because once you reveal the true ownership, Maya, there's no going back. Your family will know you've had this power all along. They'll feel betrayed, even though they're the ones who betrayed you first. Rosa wanted you to be absolutely certain before you burned those bridges. After I hung up with Helena, I sat in my office as morning shifted to afternoon, as classes cycled through the studios, as the community I'd built continued its rhythm around me. I thought about Vanessa's smile, about Mom calling her demands reasonable, about Uncle Marco who'd probably already calculated his return on investment if we sold. I pulled out my phone and created a new folder, Evidence. Then I took photos of every document in Grandma Rosa's folder, uploaded them to 3 separate cloud services, and emailed copies to Helena. My grandmother had given me a gift, not just ownership but time. Time to let Vanessa reveal herself. Time to let my family show me who they really were when they thought I was powerless. I wasn't going to waste it. The Friday board meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, but Vanessa arrived at noon. I watched through my office window as she stepped out of her Tesla, flanked by two men in suits I didn't recognize. She'd brought reinforcements. I'd spent the past 3 days following Helena's advice. My phone had become a constant companion, recording every interaction as Colorado's one-party consent law allowed. I documented every conversation, every email, every casual comment from staff about changes Vanessa had been implementing without my knowledge. The picture emerging was uglier than I'd imagined. Vanessa had been interviewing commercial real estate agents. She'd requested market analysis reports for luxury condo conversions. She'd even had preliminary architectural drawings made, showing how Harmony Heights could be gutted and transformed into 12 high-end residential units. All of this while smiling to my face and telling me we were partners. Margaret Chen, our longest tenured instructor and the closest thing I had to a confidant here, knocked softly on my door. She was 72, had been teaching Tai Chi since before I was born, and had known Grandma Rosa for decades. "Those men with your sister," Margaret said quietly, settling into the chair across from my desk. "One of them is David Brennan. He's a developer. Very aggressive. He specializes in converting community spaces into luxury properties." "How do you know him?" "He tried to buy the community center in Curtis Park 5 years ago. Promised to maintain some public programming, then evicted everyone 6 months after closing. Built condos that start at $800,000. Margaret's normally serene expression had hardened. "Your grandmother and I fought him at city council meetings. She knew his type." "Did she ever mention him in connection with Harmony Heights?" Margaret's eyes met mine with sudden understanding. "She did. About a year before she died. She said she'd heard whispers that someone was asking about the property, making inquiries through third parties. She never told me who, but she was concerned enough to update her estate planning." The pieces clicked into place. Grandma Rosa hadn't just been protecting me from Vanessa's personality. She'd been protecting Harmony Heights from a specific, calculated threat that she'd seen developing. "Margaret, I need to ask you something. In all the years you've been here, has Vanessa ever led a class? Ever worked directly with clients? Ever done anything besides show up for financial meetings?" "No." Margaret's answer was immediate. "She treats this place like a spreadsheet. I don't think she understands what actually happens here, what it means to people." "Would you be willing to say that on record? If it came to it?" Margaret studied me for a long moment. "Your grandmother told me, right before she passed, that you were going to need allies. She said when the time came, I should trust you completely. So yes, Maya. Whatever you need." At 1:45, I walked into the conference room where board meetings were held. It was technically my conference room, in my building, but I'd let Vanessa commandeer it so thoroughly that it felt like entering enemy territory. She'd even hung different artwork, replacing Grandma Rosa's collection of local artists with generic corporate prints. Vanessa sat at the head of the table, because of course she did. Mom was on her right, Uncle Marco on her left. The two men in suits occupied the far end. And there was one more person I hadn't expected, Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, who'd moved to California 10 years ago and barely maintained contact with the family. "Maya. So glad you could make it to your own meeting." Vanessa's smile was razor sharp. "Have a seat." I took the chair closest to the door, pulling out my phone and setting it on the table in front of me. "I'm going to record this, if no one objects. For my own records." "That won't be necessary," Vanessa said smoothly. "We have official minutes. I'd prefer my own copy." Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes, annoyance or maybe suspicion, but she shrugged. "Suit yourself. Though I think you'll find this is all fairly straightforward." She opened a leather portfolio, distributing packets to everyone except me. "As you all know, we've reached a critical juncture for Harmony Heights. The business has plateaued. We're leaving significant money on the table with Maya's, let's call them idealistic pricing structures. And frankly, the neighborhood has evolved beyond what this facility offers." "Plateaued?" I kept my voice even. We had a waitlist of over 300 people last I checked. A waitlist of people who want discount services, Vanessa countered. We could fill this space twice over if we raised our rates to match market standards. Equinox charges $200 per month for basic membership. We're charging $75 for unlimited classes. Because we serve a different community. Because accessibility matters. Accessibility doesn't pay the mortgage, Maya. She turned to address the room. I've brought in consultants to assess our options. David, if you would. The developer stood, pulling up a presentation on the large screen. Thank you, Vanessa. I'm David Brennan with Pinnacle Property Group. We've done extensive analysis of this location, and the potential here is extraordinary. He clicked through slides showing market comparisons, demographic data, profit projections. The Highland neighborhood has undergone tremendous transformation. Average home prices have increased 240% in 5 years. But there's a critical shortage of luxury amenities to serve the new demographic moving in. I watched Mom and Uncle Marco lean forward, dollar signs practically visible in their eyes. Our proposal is simple. Pinnacle would purchase Harmony Heights for $4.2 million. That's $600,000 above current market value for the property as is. David's smile was practiced, professional. We'd then convert the space into 12 luxury residential units. Initial projections show those units would sell for an average of $750,000 each. Total project value of $9 million. And our family's cut? Uncle Marco asked, exactly as scripted. As current owners, you'd walk away with $4.2 million, split according to your ownership percentages. Plus, we're offering a special consulting arrangement for Vanessa, given her expertise and vision for the property. Of course they were. Vanessa had probably negotiated that particular detail herself. Mom spoke up for the first time. What would happen to the current members? The people who use the space now? They'd have 60 days to find alternative arrangements, David said dismissively. Though in my experience, most of these community-oriented clientele tend to fade away naturally. They'll find other discount studios. I thought of Marcus and his trauma therapy. Of Jenny's prenatal community. Of the recovery support group. Of the 100 small ways this place served people who had nowhere else to go. That's a lot of people to displace for condos that'll probably sit empty as investment properties, I said. David's smile thinned. Investment capital is still capital, Ms. Rodriguez. And it's certainly more reliable than hoping people who can barely afford $75 a month will somehow keep a $4 million property afloat. We're not struggling. We're profitable. You're profitable in the sense that you cover expenses, Vanessa cut in. But profit isn't just about breaking even, Maya. It's about maximizing return on investment. We're sitting on a goldmine and you're treating it like a charity. I'm treating it like what Grandma Rosa intended. A community space. Grandma was sentimental. Vanessa's voice went cold. Sentimentality doesn't build wealth. Look, I know this is hard for you. You've put a lot of effort into this place. But effort doesn't equal ownership or authority. The reality is that the board has the power to make this decision, and we're prepared to vote. This was it. The moment Helena had told me to wait for. Vanessa was about to reveal exactly how far she'd go. I've already discussed this with the other board members, Vanessa continued. We've reviewed the financials, considered the alternatives, and frankly, there are no good reasons to turn down this offer. So let's make this official. All in favor of accepting Pinnacle's offer to purchase Harmony Heights for $4.2 million? Mom's hand went up immediately. Uncle Marco followed. Aunt Linda, who I now understood had been brought in specifically for this vote, raised hers without hesitation. Motion passes. Vanessa's smile was triumphant. Maya, I know you're upset, but your share will still be substantial. The minority stake Grandma left you amounts to about $400,000 after taxes. That's enough to start over somewhere, maybe open a little studio of your own. $400,000. She'd calculated my payout down to the dollar. She'd planned this so carefully, so thoroughly. And if I refuse to sign? You don't have a choice. The board vote is binding. Though if you want to make this difficult, we can force the sale through legal channels. It'll just cost everyone more in attorney fees. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, radiating satisfaction. I'm trying to do this the easy way, Maya. For family's sake. For family's sake, I repeated slowly. You're displacing 100 people, destroying Grandma's legacy, and pocketing millions, but it's for family's sake. It's business. Don't be dramatic. I looked around the table. At Mom, who wouldn't meet my eyes. At Uncle Marco, already calculating his cut. At Aunt Linda, a virtual stranger voting to destroy something she'd never even visited. At Vanessa, so certain of her victory. I have a question, I said. Just to clarify. When you say the board vote is binding, you're basing that on what documentation exactly? On the partnership agreement. The one you signed when we established the business structure. Vanessa's impatience was showing. Stop stalling, Maya. This is happening whether you like it or not. And you've verified that partnership agreement? You're certain it reflects the actual legal ownership of Harmony Heights? Something shifted in Vanessa's expression. Uncertainty, just for a moment. Of course I have. I'm the one who drafted it. You drafted a partnership agreement. But did you ever verify the underlying ownership structure? Did you check the trust documents? Did you review the actual corporate filings for Mountain Sky Holdings? The room went quiet. David Brennan was frowning now, looking between Vanessa and me. What are you talking about? Vanessa's voice had lost its confidence. I pulled out my phone, opening the document files Helena had sent me. I'm talking about the fact that Harmony Heights isn't owned by a family partnership. It's owned by an LLC. And that LLC has exactly one member, with complete authority over all decisions regarding the property. That's ridiculous. I've seen the partnership documents. You've seen documents that Grandma Rosa allowed you to see. Documents that she knew you wouldn't bother to verify because you assumed you were the smartest person in the room. I looked at David Brennan. I'd suggest you have your attorneys review the actual ownership records before you plan any renovations. Because this sale isn't happening. Vanessa stood abruptly. You're bluffing. You don't have any authority here. Don't I? I pulled up the ownership documents on my phone, turning the screen so everyone could see. Mountain Sky Holdings LLC, sole member, Maya Rodriguez. Established 8 years ago, 3 months before Harmony Heights opened. Grandma transferred the entire property to me while you were busy at Wharton learning how to maximize shareholder value. The silence was deafening. I watched the realization hit Vanessa's face, watched the color drain from Mom's cheeks, watched Uncle Marco's mouth fall open. This is some kind of trick, Vanessa said, but her voice wavered. No trick. Just very careful estate planning by a woman who knew exactly who you were. I stood, gathering my phone. The partnership you've been operating under? It was a management structure, not an ownership structure. You've been making decisions because I allowed it, not because you had any legal right to. You've known this whole time? Mom's voice was small, shocked. I've known for 3 days. Since Vanessa delivered her ultimatum demanding I double my payments or leave. That's when I opened the folder Grandma left me. I looked at my sister. She told me to wait. To let you show everyone exactly what you were willing to do. So thank you for that board vote. Thank you for making it crystal clear that you'd sell out 100 people's sanctuary for a few $1 million. Vanessa's shock was transforming into rage. You manipulative little, careful, I interrupted. We're still recording, remember? David Brennan was already packing up his presentation, his professional mask slipping. Ms. Maddox, you told me the ownership structure was verified. You said this was a straightforward acquisition. It was supposed to be, Vanessa snapped. Then I suggest you get your house in order before wasting any more of Pinnacle's time. He nodded curtly at the room and left, his colleague trailing behind. Uncle Marco found his voice. Maya, let's talk about this reasonably. 4.2 million is an excellent offer. Your grandmother would have wanted you to be financially secure. My grandmother wanted me to protect this place. That's why she gave it to me. I moved toward the door. This meeting is over. The sale is not happening. Harmony Heights continues as is, serving the community it was built for. You can't just, Vanessa started. I can, actually. Sole member authority. But don't worry, Vanessa. You still have your job as operations manager. As long as you remember that you work for me now, not the other way around. I walked out, leaving them in stunned silence, my hands shaking but my voice steady. In my pocket, my phone was still recording. Evidence of everything Grandma Rosa had predicted, everything she'd protected me from, everything she'd known they'd try to do the moment they thought I was powerless. The game wasn't over. This was just the opening move. But for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't the one scrambling to keep up. The 72 hours following that board meeting felt like living inside a pressure cooker. Vanessa didn't speak to me. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any argument, echoing through the hallways of Harmony Heights like a gathering storm. But she was working. Oh, she was definitely working. I noticed it in small ways first. Instructors mentioning casually that Vanessa had asked detailed questions about their contracts. Staff members looking uncomfortable when I entered rooms where they'd been talking. The energy in the building shifted, became watchful and tense. Margaret found me in the meditation garden on Monday morning, where I'd gone to clear my head before the day's chaos began. She settled onto the bench beside me, her movements deliberate and calm as always. Your sister has been making calls, she said without preamble. I overheard her in the parking lot yesterday. She was talking to someone about contract terminations and hostile work environment documentation. My stomach tightened. She's building a case. She's trying to. She's also been reaching out to our instructors individually, asking about grievances, suggesting that perhaps you're not as committed to their professional development as you should be. Margaret's expression was thoughtful. She's smart about it. Never directly asking them to complain, just creating space for dissatisfaction to surface. Is it working? With some, perhaps. Jenna mentioned that Vanessa suggested the studio was holding her back from more lucrative opportunities. Kevin seemed interested when she brought up the possibility of profit-sharing structures under different management. Margaret paused. But most of us remember who built this place. Who shows up at 5 in the morning when the heat breaks down? Who knows every client's name and their stories? I thought about the years I'd spent cultivating this community, the relationships that formed the invisible architecture holding Harmony Heights together. Vanessa saw employees and contracts. She didn't see the web of trust and care that actually made the place function. She's going to argue that I'm an incompetent owner, I said slowly. That the business would be more successful under her leadership. Probably. She's also meeting with your mother and uncle regularly. I've seen them arrive together twice since Friday. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but the message made my breath catch. This is Patricia Reeves, attorney for Vanessa Maddox. We need to schedule a meeting to discuss the ownership structure of Harmony Heights and resolve this matter professionally. Please contact my office. So it was starting. I forwarded the message to Helena, who called within minutes. Patricia Reeves, Helena said, and I could hear the grim amusement in her voice. She specializes in business disputes, particularly family business dissolution. Very expensive, very aggressive. What does that mean for us? It means Vanessa is escalating exactly as your grandmother predicted. She's going to challenge the ownership structure, probably claim undue influence or incompetence. She'll argue that you're not fit to run a multi-million-dollar property. Helena's tone shifted to business-like efficiency. We need to prepare. I'm going to need detailed financial records, documentation of your management decisions, testimonials from instructors and clients. Anything that demonstrates your competence and the success of your leadership. The business is thriving. Our retention rates are incredible, we're profitable, the community, the community doesn't matter to a court, Maya. Not directly. What matters is demonstrating that you're a responsible steward of a valuable asset. Your grandmother knew this fight was coming. She left you ownership, but you still have to prove you deserve it. Over the next week, I threw myself into documentation. Helena's paralegal, a sharp woman named Donna, arrived with boxes of file folders and helped me organize 7 years of Harmony Heights history into a narrative that made sense on paper. Every decision, every financial choice, every expansion and program launch got cataloged and justified. But Vanessa was working too. She'd retained not just Patricia Reeves but brought in a business consultant who spent 3 days at Harmony Heights, clipboard in hand, marking deficiencies. He found them everywhere. The sliding scale payment system was fiscally irresponsible. The free community classes were devaluing the brand. My decision to keep a staff member during her cancer treatment, paying her full salary even when she couldn't work, was emotionally commendable but financially indefensible. On paper, under the cold scrutiny of someone looking only at profit margins, my management looked soft, naive, unsustainable. Keisha caught me crying in my office after reading the consultant's preliminary report. She didn't say anything, just closed the door behind her and sat down across from my desk. "Whatever that paper says, it's missing the point," she finally said. "This place saved my life. Literally saved it. When I came back from deployment, I couldn't sleep, couldn't function. The VA had me on a waiting list for therapy that was 6 months long. You gave me a scholarship spot in trauma-informed classes within a week. You paired me with Margaret, who understood what I was going through. You created space for me to heal." Vanessa's consultant says that kind of decision-making is financially irresponsible. Vanessa's consultant doesn't understand that the financial value of this place isn't just in the revenue. It's in the fact that I'm alive and functional and now teaching others. It's in Jenny having a community that'll support her through motherhood. It's in every person who walks through those doors and finds something they didn't know they were looking for. That doesn't show up on a balance sheet. Then the balance sheet is measuring the wrong things. But courts didn't care about the things balance sheets couldn't measure. I was learning that painfully as Helena prepared our defense against whatever legal challenge Vanessa was mounting. The formal petition arrived 2 weeks after the board meeting. Vanessa was filing suit to dissolve Mountain Sky Holdings LLC, claiming that Grandma Rosa had been unduly influenced in her final years, that the ownership transfer was invalid, and that I was grossly mismanaging a valuable property. She was asking the court to either force a sale or restructure ownership to include the entire family. She'd also filed an emergency motion requesting that the court appoint a temporary manager for Harmony Heights during the litigation. Someone neutral who could prevent me from making any major decisions that might affect the property's value. "She's trying to take away your operational control," Helena explained when we met to review the filings. "If the court grants this motion, you'll be a landlord in name only while someone else runs your business." Can they do that? If they convince a judge that you're actively harming the property's value, yes. They'll argue that your management style is deliberately tanking profitability, that you're more interested in running a charity than a business, that you're not protecting the family's interests. The family voted to sell. They're not interested in Harmony Heights continuing at all. Which is actually helpful for our case. We can argue that Vanessa's real goal isn't protecting the business but liquidating it for personal profit. Helena tapped the petition. "But we need to defeat this temporary manager motion first. That hearing is in 10 days. Those 10 days were brutal. Vanessa had mobilized everyone. Mom called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that started sympathetic and grew increasingly frustrated when I didn't answer. Uncle Marco sent emails with subject lines like family unity and reasonable compromise that, when opened, were basically demands that I settle before embarrassing everyone in court. Aunt Linda, who I'd barely known existed before the board meeting, sent a long letter about family loyalty and respecting elders and how Grandma Rosa wouldn't have wanted us fighting like this. The hypocrisy was stunning. These were the same people who'd voted to destroy Grandma's legacy without a second thought, and now they were invoking her memory to pressure me into surrendering. The only family member who didn't contact me was Vanessa herself. She communicated exclusively through Patricia Reeves now, every interaction filtered through legal language and formal demands. But she was still at Harmony Heights every day, still nominally working as operations manager, still my employee whether she acknowledged it or not. We moved through the building like ghosts, never speaking, never making eye contact, the space between us crackling with everything unsaid. The instructors and staff were picking up on the tension. Some, like Keisha and Margaret, made their loyalty clear. Others were more cautious, hedging their bets, probably wondering who'd still be signing paychecks when the dust settled. I couldn't blame them. From the outside, this looked like a messy family fight between two sisters, both claiming legitimate grievances. They didn't know about Grandma Rosa's careful planning, about the years of foresight that had gone into protecting this place. They just saw conflict and uncertainty. Helena had warned me this would be the hardest part. The waiting, the uncertainty, the constant pressure from every direction. Vanessa was good at this, at creating chaos and confusion, at making her version of events seem reasonable while making me look stubborn and irrational. 5 days before the hearing, I arrived at Harmony Heights to find a camera crew in the parking lot. A local news reporter, microphone in hand, was interviewing Vanessa by her Tesla. The truth is that my sister, despite meaning well, is letting personal feelings interfere with sound business management, Vanessa was saying, her voice perfectly modulated for sympathy and concern. Our grandmother built something valuable here, and Maya's decisions are putting that legacy at risk. Sometimes family has to make difficult choices to protect what matters. The reporter spotted me. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to comment on your sister's allegations? I thought about engaging, about defending myself, about trying to win this battle in the court of public opinion. But Helena's voice echoed in my head. Don't give them ammunition. Stay quiet. Let them overplay their hand. No comment, I said, walking past the cameras into my building. But the damage was done. The story aired that evening, with Vanessa positioned as the responsible sister trying to save a family business from mismanagement. They showed exterior shots of Harmony Heights, referenced its prime location in Highland, mentioned the property's estimated value. They made it sound like I was sitting on a goldmine and refusing to let my family benefit out of spite. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, from clients and instructors who knew better. But others were harsh, strangers who'd seen the news and felt entitled to opinions about how I was selfishly hoarding wealth that should be shared with family. Margaret appeared at my apartment that evening with tea and homemade soup. She didn't ask if I wanted company, just came in and started heating the soup like it was decided. Your grandmother dealt with this too, she said as we sat at my small kitchen table. When she first bought the building, her family thought she was crazy. Spending all that money on a wellness center instead of investing in stocks or buying rental properties that would generate passive income. They called her irresponsible. They said she was wasting her retirement. What did she do? She ignored them. She built what she believed in. And eventually, when Harmony Heights became successful, when it became clear she'd created something valuable and meaningful, some of them came around. Others never did. Margaret sipped her tea. Your grandmother told me once that you can't make people understand vision when they're only capable of seeing transactions. She said the best thing you can do is prove them wrong by succeeding. Vanessa's arguing that I'm not succeeding. That I'm sacrificing profit for sentiment. Vanessa measures success in dollars. You measure it in lives changed. You're both right, according to your own definitions. The question is which definition matters more to you. I thought about the consultant's report, about the court hearing in 5 days, about the very real possibility that a judge might decide Vanessa's definition of success was the legally correct one. What if the court sides with her? What if they decide I'm not fit to run this place? Margaret's hand covered mine. Then you fight harder. But Maya, you need to understand something. Your grandmother didn't give you this building because she thought you were a better businessperson than Vanessa. She gave it to you because she knew you'd fight for what it represents, even when it was hard. Even when your whole family turned against you. Even when the law seemed stacked in their favor. That's why she chose you. The hearing was set for Monday morning. I spent the weekend with Helena and Donna, preparing testimony, reviewing documents, practicing responses to hostile questions. Helena had compiled an impressive defense, but she was also realistic about our challenges. The judge is going to focus on financial performance, she said. Your management style is unconventional. You prioritize community impact over profit maximization. In a purely business context, that can look like poor stewardship. We need to reframe it as a legitimate, sustainable business model that achieves its stated goals. What are our chances? Helena was quiet for a moment. Honestly? It's a coin flip. You have clear legal ownership. The documents are airtight. But Vanessa's arguing that ownership should come with responsibilities you're not meeting. If the judge is conservative, business-focused, skeptical of social enterprise models, we could be in trouble. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through Harmony Heights in the darkness, touching the walls Grandma Rosa had chosen, sitting in the meditation garden she designed, remembering the day we'd opened and how proud she'd been. I hope I'm doing this right, I whispered to her memory. I hope you knew what you were asking of me. My phone lit up with a message. Unknown number again, but this time the text made my blood run cold. Withdraw your opposition to the sale, or the lawsuit gets much worse. This is your last chance to settle reasonably. PR, Patricia Reeves, Vanessa's attorney, threatening me the night before our hearing. I screenshot the message and sent it immediately to Helena. Her response came within minutes. Perfect. She just made a serious ethical error. Threatening communications the night before a hearing. Save everything. I stared at that message, understanding dawning. Vanessa was panicking. She was so desperate to win that her attorney was making mistakes, crossing lines, showing the court exactly the kind of aggressive tactics they were willing to use. Grandma Rosa's voice echoed in my memory. Let them show everyone exactly who they are. The hearing was tomorrow. And I was finally ready to fight. The courthouse smelled like old wood and anxiety. I sat beside Helena in the gallery outside courtroom 7, watching lawyers and litigants flow past us in a steady stream of expensive suits and nervous energy. My own suit, the one Grandma Rosa had bought me, felt like armor that didn't quite fit anymore. Helena was reviewing notes, her pen moving across legal pad in quick, confident strokes. She'd shown up this morning looking sharp and ready, projecting the kind of calm competence that made me believe we might actually have a chance. Across the hallway, Vanessa sat with Patricia Reeves and a younger associate I didn't recognize. Mom was there too, and Uncle Marco, both dressed like they were attending a funeral. Maybe they were. Either this family died today or Harmony Heights did. There wasn't room for both to survive intact. Vanessa caught my eye for the first time in weeks. Her expression was unreadable, but something in her posture spoke of absolute certainty. She thought she'd already won. She'd brought overwhelming force, expensive attorneys, a narrative that made sense to people who understood business but not community. She had the backing of our family, the appearance of legitimacy, the weight of conventional wisdom. All I had was the truth and a dead woman's foresight. The bailiff called our case. We filed into the courtroom, taking our positions at opposing tables like chess pieces being set for an endgame neither of us had chosen but both of us would see through to its conclusion. Judge Catherine Morrison entered, and everyone rose. She was maybe 60, with steel gray hair and reading glasses that she peered over with the expression of someone who'd seen every possible variation of family greed disguised as concern. Helena had told me Morrison was fair but no nonsense, unimpressed by emotional appeals but scrupulous about legal precedent. Be seated, Morrison said, settling into her chair and opening the case file. We're here on an emergency motion for temporary management appointment in the matter of Maddox versus Rodriguez. Ms. Reeves, this is your motion. Proceed. Patricia Reeves stood, and I had to admit she was good. Her opening was crisp and compelling, painting a picture of a valuable property being mismanaged by someone who prioritized feelings over fiscal responsibility. Your Honor, the petitioner Vanessa Maddox brings this motion with great reluctance. The respondent is her sister, and there's genuine love in this family. But love cannot be allowed to excuse mismanagement that threatens a $4 million asset. Patricia clicked through a presentation on a screen visible to the judge. Harmony Heights Wellness Center occupies a property in Highland, one of Denver's fastest appreciating neighborhoods. Under the respondent's management, this property generates minimal returns while serving clientele who often pay below cost through various discount and scholarship programs. She showed financial charts, comparison data with other wellness centers, projections of what the property could earn under different management. The numbers told a damning story if you didn't know what they were measuring. The respondent has rejected multiple opportunities to increase revenue. She maintains artificially low pricing that doesn't reflect market realities. She employs more staff than necessary, including maintaining full salary for employees during extended medical leaves. She offers free programming that generates no income. These are not the decisions of someone managing a business asset. These are the decisions of someone running a charity with other people's money. Patricia turned to address the judge directly. The petitioner doesn't seek to dissolve or sell the business, Your Honor. She seeks only to ensure it's managed responsibly while ownership disputes are resolved. We request the court appoint a temporary manager, someone with relevant business experience who can maintain operations without making decisions that further devalue this property. She sat down, and I felt the weight of her presentation settle over the courtroom. She'd made me sound incompetent at best, deliberately destructive at worst. She'd taken 7 years of my life's work and reduced it to a list of financial inefficiencies. Helena stood, and her energy was different. Where Patricia had been aggressive and clinical, Helena was measured and thoughtful. Your Honor, this motion is premature and unnecessary. The respondent holds clear, legal ownership of the property in question through Mountain Sky Holdings LLC, established by her grandmother Rosa Maddox 8 years ago through properly executed trust documents. The ownership is not in dispute legally. What's in dispute is whether Ms. Rodriguez's management philosophy aligns with what the petitioner believes should be the business model. Helena pulled up her own presentation. Let's look at what petitioner characterizes as mismanagement. Harmony Heights has maintained 97% occupancy for 5 consecutive years. Client retention averages 84%, far above industry standard. The business is profitable, carrying no debt, with reserves of over $200,000. These are not the metrics of a failing enterprise. She showed testimonials, retention data, growth charts that told a completely different story than Patricia's numbers had. The petitioner calls sliding scale pricing irresponsible. The respondent calls it a sustainable business model serving a broader market. The petitioner sees free programming as lost revenue. The respondent sees it as community investment that drives long-term loyalty and word-of-mouth growth. These are philosophical differences, Your Honor, not evidence of incompetence. Helena's voice grew firmer. What we actually have here is a family member who disagreed with how the business was structured by the decedent. Ms. Vanessa Maddox believed she would inherit controlling interest. When she discovered the actual ownership structure, she immediately moved to challenge it, not through legitimate legal channels addressing the trust documents themselves, but through this emergency motion claiming mismanagement. This is an end run around established ownership, an attempt to wrest control through allegations of incompetence rather than proving actual legal deficiency in the ownership transfer. Judge Morrison held up a hand. Ms. Vargas, you'll have opportunity for full argument. Right now I'm focused on the narrow question of whether temporary management is warranted. Does your client's management pose immediate harm to the property? No, Your Honor. The business is stable and profitable. This motion is about the petitioner's desire for different management philosophy, not any actual emergency. Ms. Reeves, response? Patricia stood again. Your Honor, profitability is not the only measure of proper management. A property worth $4 million that generates modest income is being underutilized. The respondent has actively refused opportunities to maximize value, including a legitimate purchase offer of $4.2 million from Pinnacle Property Group. That's not just philosophical difference. That's failure to act in the interest of the business asset. The respondent rejected that offer, Helena countered, because she's the owner with full authority to make such decisions. The petitioner believing it was a good offer doesn't make the respondent's rejection improper. Judge Morrison made notes, her expression giving nothing away. I want to hear from Ms. Rodriguez directly. Ms. Rodriguez, please take the stand. My legs felt unsteady as I walked to the witness box. The bailiff swore me in, and I sat down facing the judge, hyper-aware of Vanessa watching from across the room. Patricia Reeves approached for cross-examination, and her smile was professional and predatory. Ms. Rodriguez, how long have you managed Harmony Heights? 7 years. And what's your educational background in business management? I have a certification in holistic health practice and wellness program administration. Not a business degree? No MBA? No. Have you taken courses in financial management, accounting, commercial real estate? I've taken workshops and worked with accountants, but no formal degree program in those areas. Patricia nodded like I'd confirmed something significant. So your sister, who holds an MBA from Wharton, who has years of corporate business experience, would you agree she has more formal training in business management than you do? She has more traditional business training, yes. When she suggested raising prices to market rates, you refused? I maintained the pricing structure that serves our community and keeps us profitable. When she presented data showing you could generate significantly more revenue with different programming, you dismissed it? I evaluated it and determined it didn't align with Harmony Heights' mission. Your mission. Not necessarily the mission that would maximize value for the property. Helena objected. Argumentative and assumes facts not in evidence. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Ms. Reeves, ask questions. Patricia shifted tactics. You employ 15 people full-time, correct? Yes. Industry standard for a facility this size is 8 to 10. We provide more comprehensive programming than typical studios. You paid an employee full salary for 7 months while she was unable to work due to illness, correct? Yes. That's approximately $35,000 in salary for no work performed. That's maintaining employment for a valued team member during a health crisis. It's also $35,000 that could have been distributed to owners or reinvested in the business. Patricia pulled up financial records. You offer 73% of your clients some form of discount or scholarship. You provide 6 hours weekly of free programming. You charge $75 for unlimited monthly access when comparable facilities charge $150 to $200. Can you explain how these decisions maximize the property's value? They maximize the property's purpose. Which is what, exactly? To provide accessible wellness services to the Highland community. To create space where healing isn't a luxury good. To honor my grandmother's vision of what this place should be. Your grandmother's vision. But your grandmother is deceased, and you're managing a multi-million-dollar asset. Don't you have a responsibility to the property itself, to its potential, to maximize its value? I looked at Vanessa, remembering the board meeting, remembering her casual dismissal of the people whose lives would be disrupted by her plans. I have a responsibility to the community this place serves. That was always the point. Even if that community can't afford market rates? Even if serving them means leaving millions of dollars on the table? Yes. Patricia smiled like I'd just proven her entire case. No further questions. Helena's redirect was gentler. Ms. Rodriguez, is Harmony Heights profitable? Yes. Does it carry debt? No. Do you have operating reserves? $215,000 as of last month. When you make decisions about pricing, staffing, programming, what factors do you consider? Sustainability of the business model, community needs, long-term client retention, staff well-being, and alignment with the mission my grandmother established when she created this space. Has the business grown under your management? We've expanded from 2 studios to 4, doubled our staff, tripled our membership, and maintain a wait list of over 300 people. Does that sound like mismanagement to you? Objection, calls for speculation, Patricia interrupted. Withdrawn. Ms. Rodriguez, why did you reject Pinnacle Property Group's offer? Because accepting it would have meant displacing over 100 people who depend on Harmony Heights for mental health support, physical therapy, community connection, and affordable wellness access. The money wasn't worth destroying what we'd built. Even $4.2 million? Even that. Some things matter more than money. Helena returned to her seat, and Judge Morrison called for a brief recess. I stepped down from the witness box on shaking legs, and Margaret was waiting in the hallway with water and a steady presence. "You did well," she said quietly. "You told the truth. I'm not sure truth is enough. It's all you have. It has to be enough." When we reconvened, Judge Morrison had both attorneys approach the bench. There was a whispered conference I couldn't hear, some exchange of documents, and then Patricia Reeves returned to her table looking unsettled. "Before I rule on the motion," Morrison said, "I want to address something that's come to my attention. Ms. Reeves, did you send a text message to Ms. Rodriguez last night?" Patricia's composure cracked for just a moment. "Your Honor, that was a settlement communication. At 9:47 p.m., the night before this hearing, you sent a message that read, and I quote, 'Withdraw your opposition to the sale or the lawsuit gets much worse. This is your last chance to settle reasonably.' Is that accurate?" It was an attempt to resolve this matter without further litigation. It was a threat, Counselor. An inappropriate communication designed to intimidate opposing party on the eve of hearing. Morrison's voice had gone cold. "I take a very dim view of such tactics." Patricia tried to recover. "Your Honor, I apologize if the message was poorly worded. It was not intended as, I don't care what it was intended as. I care what it was. And what it was is a serious breach of professional conduct that calls into question your client's good faith in these proceedings." Morrison turned her attention to the full courtroom. "I've reviewed all submitted materials. I've heard testimony. And I've considered the central question before me. Is there an emergency requiring court intervention in the management of this property?" The courtroom was absolutely silent. "I find that there is not. Ms. Rodriguez has demonstrated competent management of a profitable business that serves its stated mission. The petitioner's disagreement with that mission, with pricing strategies, with staffing decisions, these are philosophical differences that don't rise to the level of actionable mismanagement. Ms. Rodriguez holds clear legal ownership through properly executed documents. She has the right to operate her business according to her values, provided those operations remain lawful and financially sustainable. Both conditions are met here." I felt Helena's hand squeeze mine under the table. "The motion for temporary management is denied. Ms. Rodriguez retains full operational control of Harmony Heights. Ms. Maddox, if you wish to challenge the underlying ownership structure, that's a separate proceeding with a higher burden of proof. But you don't get to bypass established ownership by claiming someone is managing differently than you would." Morrison looked directly at Vanessa. "Different is not the same as wrong." "Your Honor," Patricia tried once more, "we request at minimum that the court restrict Ms. Rodriguez from making any major decisions regarding the property until ownership disputes are fully resolved." Denied. Ms. Rodriguez is the legal owner. She needs no court permission to manage her own property. This hearing is concluded. The gavel came down with finality, and I realized I was crying. Silent tears of relief, of vindication, of the sudden release of pressure I'd been holding for weeks. Vanessa stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. She looked at me across the courtroom, and for just a moment, I saw not anger but something that might have been genuine shock. She'd been so certain. She'd brought everything she had, and it hadn't been enough. Patricia was gathering papers with jerky, frustrated movements. Mom sat frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Uncle Marco was already heading for the exit, probably calculating whether this was worth further investment or if he should cut his losses. Helena turned to me, professional mask slipping to reveal honest satisfaction. "Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing." We filed out of the courtroom into the hallway, and I was immediately surrounded by Margaret and Keisha, who'd been waiting through the entire hearing. They didn't ask what happened. My face apparently told them everything they needed to know. Vanessa walked past without looking at me, Patricia beside her speaking in low, urgent tones. But Mom stopped. She stood a few feet away, looking lost and older than I'd ever seen her. "Maya," she said, and her voice cracked. I didn't know about the texts, about how far Vanessa was taking this. I thought we were just trying to help you make smart business decisions. By forcing me out? By trying to sell the place? By helping you be realistic? But the words sounded hollow even to her. Your grandmother never told me about the ownership structure. She never said she was giving everything to you. Because she knew you'd tell Vanessa. Because she knew exactly how this would play out. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. She gave you all a choice, Mom. She let you show who you really were. And you chose money. We chose family. No. You chose the family member who promised you the biggest payout. There's a difference. Mom flinched like I'd slapped her. Then she turned and walked after Vanessa, leaving me standing with the people who'd actually stood by me. Helena pulled me aside. This isn't over. Vanessa will file a direct challenge to the ownership structure. It'll take months, maybe years. And even with Morrison's ruling today, it's going to be expensive and exhausting. But we'll win. The ownership documents are solid. Your grandmother's attorney who structured them is willing to testify. Unless Vanessa can prove actual incompetence or undue influence, which she can't, yes. We'll win. Helena paused. But winning might mean losing your family permanently. You understand that? I thought about Grandma Rosa, about Margaret and Keisha, about the 100 people at Harmony Heights who showed up every day because this place mattered to them. About Marcus and Jenny and everyone else who'd found healing in the space we'd created. The family I'm losing already left a long time ago, I said. They just didn't tell me they'd gone. Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine felt like blessing after the fluorescent reality of litigation. My phone was buzzing with messages, instructors and clients who'd heard about the hearing sending support. The community I'd built was holding steady, waiting for me to come back and keep leading. Vanessa had the MBA and the lawyers and the corporate expertise. She had our mother's approval and our uncle's backing and years of being told she was the smart one, the successful one, the golden child who could do no wrong. But I had something she'd never understood the value of until it was too late. I had people who believed in something bigger than profit margins. And I had a grandmother who'd loved me enough to see what I'd need and give it to me years before I knew to ask. The fight wasn't finished. But today, standing outside that courthouse with the sun on my face and my real family surrounding me, I finally understood what Grandma Rosa had known all along. Sometimes the biggest victory isn't winning. It's refusing to lose yourself in the process. The lawsuit dragged on for 11 months. 11 months of depositions and document requests, of expert witnesses arguing about property valuations and business models, of family members choosing sides and lawyers billing hours. Vanessa fought with everything she had, bringing in psychiatrists to question Grandma Rosa's mental state in her final years, forensic accountants to pick apart every financial decision I'd made, business consultants to testify that my management was systematically destroying property value. Helena and I fought back with equal determination. We had Grandma Rosa's primary physician testifying to her crystal-clear cognition until her last week. We had 7 years of profitable operations and growing membership. We had the attorney who'd structured the original trust explaining in painstaking detail how every document had been properly executed, how Rosa had been explicit about her intentions, how she'd anticipated and planned for exactly this challenge. But more than any of that, we had the community. Keisha testified about the trauma-informed programming that had given her life back. Jenny brought her twins, now 6 months old, explaining how the prenatal community had prevented her postpartum depression. Marcus spoke quietly but powerfully about being suicidal before finding Harmony Heights, about having purpose again because of the veteran support programs we offered. One by one, our clients and instructors took the stand. They weren't dramatic or sensational. They simply told the truth about what this place meant, about healing that couldn't be quantified in profit margins, about community that existed because someone had prioritized people over maximum returns. I watched Vanessa's face during that testimony. Watched her try to maintain professional detachment while person after person explained that her plans would have destroyed something irreplaceable. I don't know what I expected to see. Remorse, maybe. Recognition. Some flicker of understanding that this had never been just about money. But Vanessa's expression remained carefully neutral throughout, her legal training serving her well. If she felt anything, she'd learned long ago how to hide it. The judge in the full trial wasn't Morrison. This was Judge Raymond Chen, older, more traditional, with a reputation for strictly by-the-book rulings. Helena had been cautiously optimistic about the assignment but warned me Chen was unpredictable on family business disputes. His ruling, when it finally came, was thorough and unambiguous. The ownership transfer had been legal, proper, and reflected Rosa Maddox's clear intentions. The trust documents were valid. Mountain Sky Holdings belonged to me, period. Vanessa's claims of undue influence were unsupported by evidence. Her arguments about mismanagement failed to meet the legal standard for incompetence. More than that, Chen's written opinion included language that felt like vindication. The court notes that different business philosophies do not constitute grounds for overturning valid ownership transfers. Ms. Rodriguez has operated Harmony Heights according to a social enterprise model that, while unconventional, has proven both sustainable and successful. That her management priorities differ from what her sister would choose does not make them legally deficient. Property owners have the right to pursue missions beyond profit maximization, provided they meet their legal and financial obligations. Ms. Rodriguez has clearly done so. We won. Completely, definitively, permanently. The property was mine, the management was mine, the future of Harmony Heights was mine to determine. Vanessa didn't attend the final hearing where Chen read his decision. Patricia Reeves appeared alone, accepted the ruling with tight-lipped professionalism, and filed notice that her client would not appeal. It was over. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. We'd won the legal battle, but the cost had been steep. My relationship with my mother existed now only in occasional, stilted phone calls where we talked around everything that mattered. Uncle Marco had stopped speaking to me entirely. Aunt Linda had sent one message after the verdict, saying she hoped I was happy now that I'd torn the family apart. The irony was suffocating. They'd voted to sell, to displace 100 people, to destroy what Grandma Rosa built. But somehow I was the one who'd torn the family apart by refusing to let them do it. Vanessa herself vanished from my life completely. She cleared out her desk at Harmony Heights the day after Chen's ruling, leaving her key card and a brief resignation letter with no forwarding information. I heard through Margaret that she'd taken a position at a firm in Chicago, putting 1,000 miles between us. Part of me wanted to reach out, to try one more time to make her understand. But Helena's words echoed, some people only see transactions. Vanessa would never understand why I'd fought so hard for something that couldn't be converted to dollars and cents. 6 months after the verdict, I stood in front of the Harmony Heights community at our annual gathering. The meditation garden was packed with current members, former clients, instructors past and present. Margaret stood near the front, now officially retired from teaching but still showing up most mornings to practice. Keisha was beside her, having taken over several of Margaret's classes. Jenny's twins were sleeping in a double stroller, surrounded by the prenatal group mothers who'd become genuine friends. I want to talk about what we've built here, I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Not just in terms of square footage or membership numbers, but in terms of what this place represents. My grandmother bought this building because she understood something fundamental: healing shouldn't be a luxury. Community shouldn't require wealth. Space to grow and change and become who you're meant to be shouldn't only exist for people who can afford premium prices. I looked around at the faces watching me, people from every background and circumstance, united by nothing except the fact that they'd all found something here they needed. Over the past year, we've fought a legal battle about what this place should be. About whether community value matters as much as property value. About whether there's room in our society for businesses that prioritize mission over maximum profit. The court said yes. But more importantly, all of you said yes. You showed up. You testified. You proved that what we've created here has worth that can't be measured on a balance sheet. Someone in the back started clapping, and it spread through the crowd until the whole garden resonated with applause. I had to pause, blinking back sudden tears. So I want to announce something. I continued when the noise died down. I've been working with attorneys to restructure Harmony Heights ownership. As of next month, this place will be operated by a nonprofit foundation. The property will be permanently protected from development or sale. Pricing will be locked in at accessible rates, adjusted only for inflation. Free programming will be guaranteed in perpetuity. And the foundation will be governed by a board that includes community members, instructors, and clients. The gasps were audible. Margaret's hand went to her mouth. I'm giving away the business, I said simply. Not because I have to, but because it's what my grandmother would have wanted. She didn't leave me this place to make me wealthy. She left it to make sure it would always serve the people who need it. The best way to honor that is to make sure no one, not me, not my family, not future owners, can ever turn it into something else. Keisha was crying openly now. Jenny too. Even Margaret looked shaken. I'll stay on as executive director, working for the foundation. But Harmony Heights won't belong to me anymore. It'll belong to all of us, to the community it serves, to the mission it embodies. That's what my grandmother really left me. Not property, but purpose. And purpose is meant to be shared. The questions came fast after that. The logistics, the timeline, the legal structure. Helena stood up to explain the foundation model, how the board would work, how community input would be incorporated. The gathering stretched long into the evening as people processed what this meant, what it would change, what it would protect. Later, after everyone had left, I sat alone in my office with a glass of wine and Grandma Rosa's photo on my desk. The one of us together on opening day, both of us beaming at a future we were building together. I hope this is what you meant, I said to her image. I hope giving it away is the same as keeping it safe. My phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. My finger hovered over delete, expecting spam or maybe another legal threat. But curiosity won. The message was from Vanessa. Maya, I heard about the foundation. I don't understand why you'd give away $4 million. I don't think I ever will. But Mom called me crying, saying she'd made a terrible mistake. She said Grandma would have been proud of what you're doing. I think she might be right about that, even if I still don't get it. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I know I destroyed that possibility. But I wanted you to know that I'm starting to understand what Grandma saw in you. You were always the favorite because you were the only one who actually listened to what she was trying to teach us. Congratulations on your victory. I mean that. I read it 3 times, searching for sarcasm or hidden meaning, but it seemed genuine. Vanessa still didn't understand, probably never would. But maybe understanding wasn't necessary for acknowledgement. Maybe we could both be right in our own ways, even if those ways were incompatible. I didn't respond to the email. There was nothing to say that wouldn't restart arguments we'd already exhausted. But I saved it, filed away as evidence that even people who see the world as transactions can sometimes glimpse something beyond the balance sheet. The foundation launch happened 3 months later. Local media covered it, interested in the unusual story of someone giving away millions to protect community access. I did a few interviews, always deflecting attention from myself to focus on what Harmony Heights represented, on the model we were creating, on the possibility of sustainable social enterprise. One reporter asked the inevitable question. Do you regret fighting your family? Wouldn't it have been easier to take the money and start something new somewhere else? I thought about that board meeting, about Vanessa's smirk, about Mom calling the rent increase reasonable. About the moment I'd opened Grandma Rosa's folder and learned I wasn't powerless after all. Easier isn't always better, I said. My grandmother taught me that some things are worth fighting for, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She gave me the tools to protect this place, and using them was the least I could do to honor her trust. What would you say to other people facing similar family conflicts over inherited property or businesses? I'd say know your values. Know what you're willing to sacrifice and what you absolutely won't compromise on. Get good legal advice. Document everything. And understand that sometimes doing the right thing means losing people you love. That's the hardest part. But if you can look yourself in the mirror and know you protected what mattered, that's worth something too. The foundation board held its first meeting on the anniversary of Grandma Rosa's death. We gathered in the conference room that Vanessa had once commandeered, but the energy was completely different now. Margaret represented longtime instructors. Keisha spoke for the veteran community programs. Jenny was there for prenatal and family services. We had a nonprofit attorney, a community organizer, and a financial advisor who specialized in social enterprise. And we had an empty chair. I'd suggested we keep one permanently empty, representing Rosa Maddox and the vision she'd planted that had grown into all of this. First order of business, I said, feeling the weight and rightness of this moment. Confirming our mission statement. Harmony Heights exists to provide accessible wellness services to the Highland community regardless of ability to pay, to create space where healing and growth are rights rather than luxuries, and to demonstrate that sustainable business models can prioritize people over profit. Seconded, Margaret said immediately. All in favor? Every hand rose. The mission was official, locked into the foundation documents, protected by law and by this board and by the community that would hold us all accountable. We spent 3 hours working through policies and programs, through budgets and outreach plans, through all the practical details of running a nonprofit that looked nothing like the business Vanessa had tried to create but everything like the sanctuary Grandma Rosa had envisioned. When the meeting ended, Margaret lingered. Your grandmother would be so proud, Maya. Not just of what you did, but of how you did it. You could have been bitter. You could have fought just to win. But you fought for something bigger than yourself. I had good teachers, I said, squeezing her hand. That night, I walked through Harmony Heights one more time. The evening Tai Chi class was in session, Margaret's replacement guiding students through slow, graceful movements. Studio B held the recovery support group, voices murmuring in that careful, honest way people talk when they're sharing their struggles. The meditation garden was occupied by 3 people in silent practice, finding peace in the space we'd created. Tomorrow we'd open the doors at 5 a.m. for sunrise sessions. We'd teach classes and hold space and serve the community exactly as we had for 7 years, except now that service was guaranteed. Protected. Permanent. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Can we talk? Really talk, not just avoid everything? I want to understand what you were fighting for. I think I'm finally ready to listen. I looked at that message for a long time. Some bridges, once burned, could maybe be rebuilt. Not to what they were, but into something new. Something honest. Tomorrow, I texted back. Come to Harmony Heights at 10. I'll show you what Grandma Rosa really built. The response came quickly. I'd like that. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Sorry didn't fix everything. But it was a start. I locked up my office and headed home, leaving Harmony Heights in the care of the instructors and members and the mission that now held it safe. The building would be here tomorrow and the day after and years from now, serving people who needed what we offered, protected from the forces that would have torn it down for profit. Vanessa had tried to double my payment from $3,200 to $6,400. She'd smiled while Mom called it reasonable. She'd brought lawyers and consultants and the full weight of conventional business wisdom to force me out. But Grandma Rosa had given me something stronger than all of that. She'd given me ownership, yes. But more importantly, she'd given me permission to care about things that couldn't be measured in money. To fight for community over capital. To believe that some victories were worth any cost. In the end, I'd won by giving everything away. By transforming ownership into stewardship, property into mission, business into calling. And that, I thought as I drove home through Denver's evening streets, was exactly the kind of paradox Grandma Rosa had always understood. The things we hold tightest are the things we lose. The things we release with open hands are the things that truly become ours. Harmony Heights didn't belong to me anymore. But the purpose it embodied, the community it served, the proof that another way was possible, those would last long after I was gone. That was legacy. That was worth fighting for. That was everything Grandma Rosa had tried to teach us, though only one of her granddaughters had been listening. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.